Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pet Barbecue. On today's video, I'm going to do something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. We're going to be smoking a 45-day dry aged brisket, but first we got to dry age this brisket. Stay tuned. All right, so here's our 14-pound brisket that we're gonna be dry aging for 45 days. Now, one thing that I did do was I washed the outside of this surface with a mild soap and water, dried it off with paper towels, just to make sure there's nothing on the outside of this plastic that I don't want touching this brisket. I also have to make sure that I wear a nice glove. I'm gonna be using these Clean Space Project gloves. These are the ones that I use on my food truck and on all of my YouTube videos. Check out the links below if you guys wanna get yourselves a few cases of these gloves. These are nitrile gloves, and they're nice and heavy duty. So the reason that I did wash the outside of this package is that I don't want any bacteria growth on this brisket. Even though the dry age cabinet that I'm gonna show you guys here in a little bit does have a UV light to prevent the bacteria growth, I just don't want to invite bacteria if I don't have to. All right, so first things first, let's get this brisket out of the cryovac. Now, I would normally cut right here on the decal, but I do not want to trim this brisket whatsoever. So I gotta be very careful. Just lift the plastic and cut that cryovac just like that. All right, so let's get this brisket out. Now, this is a Creekstone brisket. It's got some really nice marbling, as you can see right here. And this is a upper 2/3 choice brisket, okay? All right, so essentially at this point, the only thing I need to do is to dry off that surface with some paper towels really good. Make sure there's no excess liquid on the surface whatsoever. So normally when you're dry aging beef, you want to try to dry age beef cuts that have a bone in it, like a ribeye roast or something like that. And the reason you want to do that is because they do lose a lot less moisture than a boneless brisket. So this is going to lose quite a bit of weight. Right now, again, it weighs 14 pounds. I weighed it. We're going to see what it weighs after we dry age it for 45 days. And I'm also going to weigh it after I trim it at those 45 days. All right, so I'm just gonna dry up this fat cap. So the dry ager that I'm gonna be using does come with some shelves, but I took those shelves off, and you also get a couple of meat hooks that I'm gonna use to hang this brisket because it's really long, so I took out the shelves. So again, these are the two S hooks that I'm gonna be using. These are meat hooks, and I'm gonna hang it with the point side up top and the flat pointing down. So let me just select a nice sturdy spot, just like that. Make sure the hook passes on the other side. And because this is 14 pounds, I'm gonna be using 2 hooks. All right, I'm just gonna move this brisket aside and I'm gonna show you guys my dry aged cabinet. Stay tuned. All right, guys and gals, so here it is. This is my brand new Reserve 50 dry age cabinet from Pro Smoker, and this thing is a beauty. Let me show you some of the functions of this thing. All right, so we might hear an alarm here in a little bit because this does have some safety alarms. Just in case your temperature starts to go up and you start to lose humidity, it will start to beep. So hopefully it will start to beep so you guys can see that happening. So first of all, you do have a UV light in here. Again, that's gonna help prevent any bacteria growth in our brisket. The second thing is that you have full control of the temperature and the humidity level. Now, Pro Smoker does recommend 36 degrees. So let's hit the set here. And I'm gonna set this at 36 degrees and anywhere between 75 and 80% humidity. So if I hit this button again, I can adjust my humidity, and I'm gonna shoot for 77 degrees. You also have a light, an interior light you can see right here, and that is controlled with this button right here. And then you have your power button. Now up here at the top, you do have this rod. This is where I'm gonna be hanging this brisket. So one thing that I did do is I have this tag right here, and I wrote our starting weight, and there's that emergency alarm that I was talking to you guys about earlier. So we're just gonna have to deal with it, okay? So I'm starting with a 14-pound USDA choice brisket. It is Creekstone. 14 pounds is my starting weight. Today's date, December 11th of 2023. 45 days from now, It's gonna be January 25th of 2024. So I'm just gonna put this right here on this rod. That way I remember exactly what is inside this cabinet and when I gotta pull it out. Now this is a professional grade cabinet, but again, Pro Smoker built this cabinet for the home user like you and I. So I'm just gonna grab my brisket. 14 pounds doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're trying to hang it, it sure feels like a ton of weight. So I'm just gonna grab this and place it right inside this cabinet. Go and hang it up here. All right, so one thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower these hooks because they are too high. So I'm just gonna go down just a little bit more. There we go, just like that. Just to raise the brisket up a little bit. So I got the hooks about halfway inside the point of the brisket. Now one other thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place some paper towels under this brisket because I'm sure we're gonna have some kind of leakage. So I'm gonna go ahead and close the door to our cabinet. And one other thing is that you also have some keys for your cabinet. So if you have young kids, you don't want them messing around with this, just lock it up and they will not be able to open up your cabinet. So we will see you guys in 45 days. Stay tuned. All right, so here's the brisket after 45 days in my Reserve 50 dry aging cabinet from Pro Smoker. And I gotta tell you, number one, it's really light, it looks weird. I don't know if I'm gonna have any brisket left once I trim the pellicle off of this thing, but we're gonna find out together. If not, we're gonna grind this up and have some amazing 45-day dry aged burgers. But again, I won't know that until I start carving some of this pellicle off. Now just a reminder that we started this project back on December the 11th of 2023. Today is January 25th of 2024, so that is 45 days. So right out of the gate, guys, there is no foul smell on this brisket. There is no mold, and that's because the dry aging cabinet does have a UV light, which will prevent mold from growing on your meat. Now, one thing that I've learned over the 45 days, I've read a lot about dry aging. It's recommended that you do dry age meats with a bone in it, for example, like a prime rib. Now, because this has no bone in it, I think that we lost a lot more than if we had a piece of meat that had a bone inside of it. But let's go ahead and weigh this brisket and see exactly how much we lost weight-wise in 45 days. All right, so I've got my meat scale right here. I'm gonna throw the brisket on there. All right, so we are at 9.70. We started with 14 pounds. So that is 4.3 pounds. And all of that is moisture, okay? We lost 4.3 pounds of moisture in the dry aging cabinet. Now I got two knives. I got my fillet knife and I got my chef's knife. I don't know which one I'm gonna use because again, I've never done this before, but I'm gonna try to use the fillet knife by itself and see what we've got. Now, it did sit in the cabinet kind of weird, and that's why it's kind of folded like this, but I think we can work around that. So let's just start right here on this side. Well, you know, it's not too hard to trim. Now, it's not too hard to trim, but look at that marbling in there. All right, just gonna try to stay on the surface here, not go terribly deep. Now this was a choice brisket, but you can see that marbling looks really nice on this brisket. Now a lot of people say that you can save this pellicle and throw it in like with some sausage or maybe a burger grind to get that dry age umami flavor. But I haven't looked into that too much, so I'm just gonna put it aside for now. You know, so far so good, fairly easy to trim. I'm just trimming out a lot of the darker stuff. Check that out. I'm gonna continue to trim this and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so here's the brisket after I trimmed off all of the pellicle, and we're left with exactly 6 pounds, okay? So that's how much I trimmed off. Here's a fat cap. Now, a couple of things that I did note was this fat is really soft. I mean, it is melting under the heat from my hand right here. It's almost like Wagyu fat, so it's really tender, and the marbling is extremely pronounced on the flat. Check that out. So I think we have enough brisket to go ahead and smoke it, so that's what I'm gonna do. Now I was afraid that it wasn't gonna be that big after I trimmed off all the pellicle, but again, we have 6 pounds of brisket left, which means we should have 3 to 4 pounds once this brisket is completely smoked. Now, if I was gonna do this again, I would definitely get a much larger brisket, probably an 18, maybe a 20-pound brisket, and dry age that. That way you're left with at least a 10-pound brisket. So I'm gonna be smoking this on my Bison Red Dog smoker, which is an offset smoker. And I'm gonna be smoking this with the fat cap up. So I'm just gonna start with a little bit of water, just to get our rubs to stick. This is just room temperature water. I'm gonna keep the seasonings real simple. Got some kosher salt. Got some garlic powder. This is a mix of garlic powder and granulated garlic. And of course, our 16 mesh black pepper. One of the other things I noted is once I trimmed off all of the pellicle off this brisket, it became a lot more flexible, okay? So it's really stiff to begin with, but right now, it's actually pretty flexible. All right, let's head outside and fire up my Bison Red Dog. Stay tuned. All right, so I'm outside of my Bison Red Dog smoker, and I do have 5 splits of post oak wood inside my firebox, and that is from Gourmet Wood Products. Check them out at Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm gonna go ahead and light these splits with my grill gun from Grill Blazer. Again, if you don't have one of these, check out the links below and get yourself one. All right, I'm gonna let this burn down into coals, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, I've got the Bison Red Dog running at 275 degrees, but I am gonna be smoking this brisket at 250 degrees. So the temperature will come down, and again, I'm gonna maintain that at 250 degrees. Let's go ahead and load up our brisket. I'm gonna place this brisket right smack in the middle. Right here, again, 250 degrees. Look at that. So you can actually fit maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, if you wanna use the top grate, 5, 6 briskets on this Bison Red Dog. And I'm talking big briskets. This guy's a little guy right here, but you can actually move it all the way over to the left and definitely put 4 briskets here on the bottom and another 2 on the top, just in case you guys are wondering. This is my first cook on my Bison Red Dog. You guys have got to check them out. All right, so I'm gonna shut the door. We're gonna give this brisket about 4 hours. Again, 250 degrees, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so it's been 6 hours. I checked on the brisket at the 5-hour mark, and the bark still wasn't where I like it, so let's look at it now. Oh yeah. All right, so that bark is looking really good. Let's take an internal temperature. Wow, we're already at 186 right there. Man, this is feeling really tender. I don't know if it's because it's dry aged, but that's 175 on the flat. Right in the middle, 186 as well. So I'm gonna pull this off and wrap it in butcher paper. Let's take this inside and wrap her up. All right, so I've got my butcher paper right here. Now, this is a really small brisket. I could probably wrap this brisket in 1 sheet of paper, but I'm gonna use 2. Show you guys how I wrap my briskets. Pull the paper over, then tuck these wings in, just like that. Fold the paper over, fold the paper over. Fat cap is down right there. Pull the excess paper under the brisket just like this. And fold it over. I'm gonna go toss this in the smoker, and I'll bring you guys right back. All right, so the brisket is ready, and the total cook time was 7 hours. Now this has been resting on my counter for 1 hour, and the internal temperature right now is 165 degrees. So let's pull it out of the wrapper and see what we've got. Smells like a brisket. Smells really good, actually. Oh man, really tender, really jiggly. Got a little bit of tallow in the wrapper there, like putting that over the top of the brisket. Just a little bit. That bark is nice and crunchy. All right, the moment of truth. Let's see what we've got with this 45-day dry aged brisket. Here we go. That money shot right here. Oh man, super tender. By the way, that bison red dog, this is the first cook on that smoker, and it did absolutely amazing. Holy cow, look at that. You know, it's got a Wagyu color. I've smoked several Wagyu briskets before, and they've got this kind of a little bit darker, but look at that, nice and juicy. I am not squeezing this at all, but it is really juicy. I mean, look at the juices on this flat too. Hopefully you guys can make that out with these lights I'm using. Sometimes the juiciness doesn't quite come out on camera, but I am loving this. Look at that. You know, I'm gonna get a couple of slices from the flat first. Now, I'm not using a slicer, I'm just using a meat cutting knife, so you'll have to forgive me. Smells amazing, okay? The aroma in here is amazing. All right, so I'm just gonna get one slice from there, and maybe one slice from the point here. Oh my goodness, look at this. This is ridiculous. Let me show you this. You know, after 45 days, I didn't inject this brisket or anything, and it is extremely, I mean extremely juicy. Unlike any other brisket I have ever seen. Look at this. This is insane. Even the flat, okay? This is the flat. And again, super, I mean, mega juicy. Look at that. Pull apart, tender as all get out. All right, let's give this brisket a try. All right, guys, the moment of truth. I'm gonna try the flat first. But look at that color. So juicy. This is ridiculous. I'm a little nervous, quite honestly, eating something that's been dry aging for 45 days because I've never had it. But I'm also excited at the same time. So here we go. That is a really good, rich flavor. The fat is, man, it is really good. That fat is really tender, buttery, it just melts. But the flavor of the beef, unbelievable. Like, really, I'm not even kidding. I've never had anything that has been aged this long, but this right here is really tasty. I know the number one question is going to be, is it worth it? Yes. The unfortunate thing is that I only dry aged one brisket. I mean, I'd like to dry age briskets for 45 days every single time I smoke a brisket. So I might get me a larger dry age cabinet and just have one ready to go every time I have a brisket cook. It is that good. I am serious, guys. And this point right here, this point meat is ridiculous. Look at this. Juicy, tender. I mean, look at this, guys. The fat definition. Again, we lost a lot of weight in the dry age cabinet, but there is still a lot of moisture. The fat was really pronounced. In fact, you guys saw the picture earlier of that brisket. You guys saw the marbling on it. It's almost like it got more pronounced during that dry age process. And you can definitely see it on this point right here. I mean, you can see the fat running through the brisket right there. Amazing. Here we go. I can't explain it. Perfectly seasoned, guys. Just the right amount of pepper, salt, and garlic. I am speechless. Again, I know the big questions are going to be, is it worth it? Absolutely. Would I do it again? Yes, I would do it again. I'm going to get me a larger dry aging cabinet from Pro Smoker so that I can have multiple pieces of meat, because if dry aged meat tastes like this all the time, imagine a steak. I mean, this is just a brisket. I hate saying that it's just a brisket, but back in the day, guys, this was kind of a throwaway piece because it's so tough. But that dry aging process did something very magical. You know, the enzymes really broke that meat down to where it's this tender and delicious. That's the most important part. I hope you guys enjoyed this brisket video, because I did. Go out and get yourself one of these dry age cabinets. Dry age some meat, some steaks, some brisket like I did. You're gonna love it. If this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe Spit BBQ. See ya.